Hello. Am I overdressed for my office? I know it's not summertime yet. It's not summer yet, but it feels like summertime out there. So I thought uh, I'd go casual today. Uh, I want to talk today, just briefly, uh, about a literal, bona fide magical legend. Uh, and for a while, he was a living legend, but I don't know what, long about 1985 or something, he passed away. Now, I would like to be able to say that I was Israel Regardie's favorite student. Okay. I would even like to say that I was Israel Regardie's personal student, but I can't say either one of those. I can honestly say that even though Regardie was sort of my neighbor, he was only about 60 miles away, and I visited him at his home and met him on other occasions and did make his acquaintance and was in regular contact with him. And he did make himself available to answer any of my questions directly on the telephone, which we did back and forth for a number of years, and even conspired on a sort of a whimsical project together. But I can't say that he was anything more than a casual magical mentor. So if others want to claim they were his apprentice or something like that, let them. But he was just a dear soul. And when Constance and I first met him, he was a very hospitable host that was not above drinking champagne at 10 o'clock in the morning, which endeared him to us no end. So over the years, though, I have been privileged to make comments on some of his works that were among the earliest of my magical exposure literature, and been allowed to introduce and do work on the reprints of various of his works, which if you don't have a library full of Israel Regardie books and you're interested in magic, well, you better start collecting those books and making a serious study of them. One of the most recent, surprisingly enough, was one that was just published a couple of years ago, but by our friends at New Falcon Publications, that for years, even while he was alive, did a lot of his publishing work. And this one is just called Ceremonial Magic, A Guide to the Mechanisms of Ritual. And I'm just going to briefly show you the table of contents so you can see what kind of a book this is. Okay. Basic principles, ritual of opening by watchtowers, first, second, completed ritual, etc., etc. Background data concerning practical stuff. This is practical stuff. I wish I would have had this available during my early years. It would have just saved me a whole lot. And why it took so long for this, so many years after his death, to make its appearance by this very small but prestigious publisher, New Falcon, I don't know, except they asked me to write the introduction to it. I probably shared the introduction with you on many occasions, and that's probably part of my, although I'm not sure if it's part of my book, Allow Me to Introduce. Anyway, it's very short. I'm going to review it to you today. And I'm also going to give you a taste of Regardie himself in the opening, his opening words in this book. So now I don't know whether to do this part before or after. I think I'll do it after. So anyway, a couple pictures of Regardie. There's one of the most dignified ones. He was a younger man then. That's not the way he looked when we met him. Smoking a pipe, which is, he wasn't smoking anything that I recall when we met him. And let's see. Now, this is my favorite. And this is pretty much what he looked like when he was Aleister Crowley's secretary. Love those glasses. Now, Constance, in a book that's being written by a friend of ours about Israel Regardie, it's sort of a pictorial scrapbook of Regardie. Constance, in her own illimitable style, did a version of this for the cover of that book. And as publishing projects go, we may or may not ever see that in our lifetime. So anyway, here's what I have to say. Starts off with a little epigraph from the Bornless Ritual. Come thou forth and follow me, and make all spirits subject unto me, so that every spirit of the firmament and of the aether, upon the earth and under the earth, on dry land or in the water, of whirling air or of rushing fire, and every spell and scourge of God may be obedient unto me. I'll wait a moment for that to happen. It's been a little over 50 years since I took my first stumbling steps on the path of ceremonial magic and the Western mysteries. I find it impossible to explain why I was drawn to this colorful and easily misunderstood spiritual art form. Perhaps it was my utter disgust for the willful ignorance, hypocrisy, and mean-spirited bigotry displayed by my good Christian elders growing up in 1950s rural Nebraska. Oh, they would have been proud to say they weren't woke. Nebraska was where woke went to die. But I digress. Perhaps it was simply the liberating byproduct of my college fascination with the colorful and exotic teachings of Eastern mysticism. Or perhaps it was just simply the result of just the right amount of lysergic acid ingested at just the right sunrise, breaking over just the right desert horizon at just the right instant in the sidereal ballet of every spinning celestial sphere in the cosmos. Whatever the reason, I finally woke up to the realization that any path to enlightenment could potentially be the right one. It was clear to me that my foot was already on 2 or 3 giant strides along the path of ceremonial magic. Whatever it was certainly not because I was a good student. I've always been an incorrigible student. Were I struggling in today's school system, they might diagnose me with attention deficit disorder or other such conditions to explain why I was such an habitually disruptive class clown. Whatever the cause, I've never been good at structured education or learning things in groups, or being overly respectful to teachers or authorities who have not, by some display of superior wisdom or extraordinary character traits, attracted my attention or earned my awe and respect. When I do run across such individuals, learning ceases to be a labor and becomes a religion. I started reading books by Israel Regardie in 1972. About the same time, I started to study the works of Aleister Crowley. At the time, I would have jumped at the chance to become an initiate of the Golden Dawn. But if there was a bona fide active Golden Dawn within thousands of miles of my home, I certainly was not aware of it. Regardie himself was quite approachable and most supportive of the idea of the Golden Dawn groups forming, but he was highly dismissive of the idea of all those who would try to claim any kind of exclusive and sacred lineage. He stressed only the importance of the quality of the work being done and the sanity of the individuals doing the work. His early and continual warm support of the work being done in Florida by Chick and Tabitha Cicero was shared by many of us. And the decades of continuing success is proof of his support, that his support was well placed. Today, there are several other active Golden Dawn and Golden Dawn structured orders being doing independent temple work worldwide. I've been privileged to witness the work of several of them, including several that have developed a kind of hybrid Golden Dawn by artfully and, in my opinion, appropriately introducing certain new aeon thelemic formulae into the evolving organism of the order. Okay, I'll digress for a second. Golden Dawn order, if we could reduce this to shorthand of the magical era that a person is living in, the Golden Dawn could be abbreviated into embracing and working with, in a magnificent way, the LVX formula, INRI-LVX formula. It was the cream of the crop of the aeon of Osiris magical ceremony. And that has, according to many magicians, myself included, feel that formula has now been amended to a slightly new formula. It all deals with whether you view yourself as spinning around the sun or whether or not you are the sun in the center of the universe, but that's many other classes. But anyway, so I think it's highly appropriate that instead of throwing the Golden Dawn baby out with the bathwater, it's just tweaked in the same way that the cosmic consciousness of humanity, it was just tweaked a little between the aeon of Osiris, the last roughly 2,000 years, and the new thelemic formula. So, and I never liked the idea of just completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but just tweak it. And that's what several of the modern incarnations of Golden Dawn work are doing. Particularly impressed at the moment at the work that the Temple of the Silver Star is doing, but it is not alone or unique in their attempts to utilize the new ceremony in Golden Dawn style style workings. And I say all power to everybody. Just don't start telling everybody else that yours is the only way to go, or you're cast into the outer darkness if you don't do this. Okay. But I digress. Sadly, I feel that not every group calling itself the Golden Dawn nowadays can be recommended. Caveat emptor is as true in the marketplace of occult orders as it is on the used car lot. And the would-be initiate is always encouraged to use his or her best instincts and common sense. If the members or leaders of such groups seem a little over-eager in their attempts to proselytize, or appear overly fixated on their direct lineage to MacGregor Mathers or Metatron or Jesus Christ, or spend a lot of time rambling on about how monstrous and terrible all the other Golden Dawn groups are, then you might interpret such behavior as red flags. Curiously, this little book by my dear departed friend and mentor came to me in the most roundabout manner long after his death. This is a 2000 publication, first edition, 2020. This is only 2 years old, this first edition. There is not a doubt in my mind that should it have been among the first of bonbons of serious occult confection I needed to pop into my magical maw during the first half-dozen years of my fumbling efforts to educate myself, but it wasn't. Instead, I spent far too many confused years looking for a place to actually start practicing this stuff. And blindly shoving my nose against the grindstone of the old Llewellyn 2-volume set of the Golden Dawn, believing it to be the sacred font of all ceremonial magic wisdom. Please don't misunderstand me that classic text that sold us the Golden Dawn, that Regardie got in so much trouble for publishing in the first place in a 4-volume set. But anyway, please don't misunderstand me. That classic text is precisely such a wellspring of knowledge. But just as fans as Arnold Schoenberg or Igor Stravinsky might likely cut their musical baby teeth on folk melodies or Mozart, the ponderous material in the Golden Dawn, even Regardie's Golden Dawn, is for the beginner probably not the best, at least its most ponderous and awkward place to start. Ceremonial magic, a guide to the mechanics of ritual, on the other hand, is a happy medium positioned somewhere between the ponderous lectures, group ceremonies, and initiations of a highly structured occult initiatory society, and a compact, practical handbook of the core material that encourages a solo practitioner to begin a hands-on program of self-initiation. If I were to make a very generic recommendation as to how the new or relatively new student should utilize this book, I would say, study and begin the ritual practices and meditations in this little guidebook. Treat it sort of like your own self-administered catechism manual. Don't be overly concerned if at first you don't completely understand a few things. Confidently assume that you will soon move on with your other practices. Confidently assume that you soon will and then move on with your other practices. Can't read my own stuff. Create a journal of your daily practices. Treat this little book, for a while, as the only book on the subject that you have. Just pretend you're on a desert island with this book, just for a while. Give yourself 1 year. Yes, I said 1 year. And at the end of the year, buy or borrow some large Golden Dawn book. And I'm suggesting that at the moment, probably the best, most complete, and the one that you'll probably keep for the rest of your life would be the editions published by New Falcon as the complete Golden Dawn system of magic. Although any Golden Dawn, the well and big versions are fine too. But after you've given yourself 1 year with this, then read it. I'm confident at the moment, that the moment you start reading it, the essence of the magic work of the Golden Dawn will unfold its secrets to you like a flower. In other words, this is like Miracle Grow. Fertilize yourself with it. Okay. I promised you some words by Israel Regardie himself. And I'm just going to sort of read the opening salvo in his chapter 1. This is called Basic Principles. It may be asked for what purpose this book has been written. Why should one bother with ceremonial magic of this type? The question is valid. But in view of the facts that so much has been written in recent years about magic itself, the answer should be so clearly apparent to any student of the subject that I do not feel disposed to cope with it here and now at any length. So if you don't know why you're studying magic at the moment, figure it out. Let me get on with this book. One may mention, first of all, the Mystical Kabbalah by Dion Fortune, which provides the theoretical basis of ritual magic. And there are several other books of W.E. Butler, all on the same topic. Excellent texts for the students to study for a long time. William Gray's Ladder of Lights is a masterpiece to put in a similar category of the book by Dion Fortune mentioned above. I'll say his Gray's book that's just called Magic, I think, is also an excellent text of this same era and genre that Regardie is talking about. Now, listen to what else Regardie was recommending. Gareth Knight has written a fine little book, The Practice of Ritual Magic. Certainly, the writings of Aleister Crowley on this topic must never be neglected. He's the primary expositor of this subject in modern times. Gems from the Equinox, as well as his Magic and Theory and Practice, will give the student a good deal of material which may take years to assimilate and use properly. A couple of my own books may be consulted to considerable advantage. The Golden Dawn is a must. I can say this without any sense of egotism, for I was only the editor and not the author of the material contained in those original 4 volumes. Now he's still talking about his stuff here. The Tree of Life. Israel Regardie's The Tree of Life. It's one of the early books. He was still almost a kid when he wrote it. He's sort of loquacious in it. The first time I talked to him, I said, Boy, you sure use a lot of words in the tree of life, because he is sort of uh, uses a lot of adjectives. Uh, and he laughed and he said he was so young and he was trying to sort of outshine Crowley in his use of language, but I digress. The tree of life may help to clarify and coordinate a great deal of the apparently disconnected material of both Crowley and the Golden Dawn. Finally, Foundations of Practical Magic. Now, at the time, it was published by Aquarian Press back in 1979. Should be mentioned as a general introduction to the whole practical side of the subject. With this material assimilated, what follows in this book should not be too mysterious, nor the motives for practicing it. What is to be gained from frequent, or even better, the daily psycho-spiritual sensitivity? The student who has spent some time on the basic disciplines described in 12 Steps to Spiritual Enlightenment, which is another book by Regardie, or some other similar regimen, he will find himself in a position to obtain a very great deal more from the ritual than the student approaching without this due preparation. Despite the fact that illumination, I mean, what we think of as illumination, oh, I get it, oh, wow, aha. Despite the fact that illumination is in effect a sudden and immediate event, it is nonetheless equally true that enhancing the sensitivity of the organism may well prepare the way for such an event to occur. There are no absolute rules laid down anywhere that guarantee enlightenment. Quote, "The Spirit bloweth where it listeth," unquote. No man is in a position to say who or when or why any one individual is subject to this descent of the Holy Spirit. Now that's good stuff, okay? That's very good stuff. And it's words like that, and it's an attitude like that that makes me, although embracing the genius of one-on-one spiritual mentorship, there is a limit to what one individual, no matter how illuminated themselves, there is a limit to how one individual can make an initiatory or spiritual judgment on the initiatory status of another. It's good to have a teacher. It's good to have a guide. But only you know when you have made progress. Don't wait around for someone to give you a badge. I'm going to end with this. I usually read it 2 times a year. When Regardie died, there were a lot of eulogies, but most of the eulogies that were in print pretty much spent all of their ink saying how much Regardie liked them. So I published this in an occult magazine at the time. I think it was called Mesla. And people thought it was serious, and others could see through it right away. But here it is. Israel Regardie, his favorite student, remembers. As told by Stonehenge equinox. Well, actually, it's by Stonehenge equinox as told to Lon Milo DuQuette. It wasn't long after Israel Regardie met me that his health began to fail. Even though we met in person only twice, I still managed to have a profound effect upon his life. They say you never get a second chance to make a good first impression, and if I say so myself, Regardie's first impression of me was a lasting one. At the time, I did not know his address, so I staked out his post office box in Studio City. After 3 days, he finally arrived to pick up his mail. He almost missed his chance to meet me, for alas, I had fallen asleep out on the sidewalk near the newspaper racks in front of the building. Destiny, however, could not be thwarted, and the gods guided his tiny footsteps to... I always crack up at that one, because Regardie was not he was sort of diminutive stature, okay? However, destiny could not be thwarted as the gods guided his tiny footsteps to tread upon my left hand and forearm. Luckily, he was not hurt badly in the fall. And as I helped him gather his mail from the gutter, I seized the opportunity to introduce myself. Equinox is my name, Stonehenge Equinox. You're the reason I'm into magic. He responded with an astounding display of mental telepathy. I don't suppose you're insured? He asked, not concealing the fact that he already knew the answer. I followed him to his car where I displayed my tattoos and treated him to an impromptu performance of my original diagonal pillar ritual. He feigned disinterest, but I could tell that he was favorably impressed. Great magicians don't need words to communicate with each other, and so I was not surprised to see him speed off in his car without uttering a sound, although he did gesture. Our next meeting was more mystical and intimate. As Providence ordained, I found his phone number scrawled on the restroom wall at the Bodhi Tree bookstore in West Hollywood and immediately gave him a call. Playfully disguising my voice, I told him I'd thrown my back out and made an appointment for a chiropractic adjustment. There's no question that the man was omniscient, but he seemed genuinely surprised to see me when I and my then-girlfriend, Diana Ishtar Sophia Morgana, appeared at his door. The dear man asked if I'd come for the spinal adjustment and voiced his delight that I brought someone to help me home. What a saint. And you know, he was right. After his treatment, I was unable to walk for 3 weeks. But thus began a 5-year odyssey of intense spiritual correspondence. Every Friday, I mailed him my magical record, dream diary, semen sigils, and excerpts from my still unfinished novel, Sex Wizards of Phlegm. Each week, like clockwork, my letters and packages were returned to me, seemingly unopened and unedited. However, to a trained clairvoyant such as myself, adept Traveling in the spirit vision, these silent messages were a treasure chest of deeply personal magical instruction and encouragement. Each page dripped with his energy and were all alive with the psychically transmitted practical advice, initiatory ordeals, and occult secrets. It was in this manner that he consecrated me psychopomp of North Hollywood. Then, shortly before his death, he chose to abandon our astral correspondence, and he communicated to me on the material plane by actually writing me a letter. It was in this last letter that he poignantly revealed his deep personal affection for me by beginning his message by addressing me as dear. It was also in this letter that he revealed a mystic precognition of his own impending death. After advising me on matters of mental health, personal hygiene, and the proper use of the English language, he closed with these chillingly prophetic words. It'll not be necessary for you to ever contact me again. That's our morning with dear Israel Regardie. Francis Israel Regardie, as everybody always said. When you met him, that's the first thing he said. Call me Francis. But it seems presumptuous when people refer to him after his, Francis and I did this. Francis. Anyway, I feel goofy this morning because I'm dressed so festive. Off to the beach. Oh, I'm far from the beach. Anyway, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Get yourself a Israel Regardie book and get cozy with it today. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is a law, love under will. And just as a postscript, when you said, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, Regardie answered back, love is a law, love under will. And in his correspondence to me, he always opened and closed with 93.